Hello, everyone, and welcome to Entrepreneurs International Network Weekly Webinar Series. This is Iman Aghay, the founder of Entrepreneurs International Network, and I'm super excited for having all of you today on the call and for having Charmaine Hammond to do her amazing talk about how to get corporate sponsors. So first of all, thank you, Charmaine, for being here today on the call with me.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's just great to see your smiling face again. We were just chatting that we met in October. So really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Awesome, perfect. Thanks. It's great to have you. And before Charmaine and I continue for another half an hour, and then we realize nobody could hear us, if you can hear us, please go ahead to the right side of the screen in the chat box and let us know that you can hear us, and also tell us where you are coming from. Entrepreneurs International Network is a network of entrepreneurial groups in 27 cities, and we are close to about 20,000 members among all of our networks. So it would be interesting to see people who are on the call from which city they are coming from, and it's just kind of like, let's see who is the furthest person that's coming on the call. We had people from, I think, St. Petersburg in Russia. We had people in New Zealand, obviously, and so that's, anyhow, I'm interested to know more to see, where people are coming from here. Okay, awesome, perfect. So it appears that people can hear us. So we have people from Vancouver, and then south regions of Vancouver. I can hear you from Boston. Awesome, perfect. Portland. Camille from Edmonton, California, Calgary, Phoenix, Las Vegas. Awesome, perfect. Vancouver, Burlington, Ontario. Burlington, Ontario. That's super cool.
That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. Chris.
Awesome. So Decatur, Georgia, and California, Berkeley, California, Franco, Toronto. From Edmonton, Vancouver, Boston, Calgary, Tampa, Chicago, New York City. Awesome, perfect. Super excited for having all of you guys here and having so many things happening in the chat box. It's actually always great to have a very active audience in the group. And what Charmaine and I are going to do today, we are not going to, like Charmaine, actually, well, I'm just kind of the moderator here. It's kind of, usually when I do Entrepreneurs International Network events, I'm always the moderator, and I just bring some of the best speakers in the world to share some amazing information with you. And I'm super excited to bring Charmaine today. And I tell you why I'm excited to have Charmaine here. And believe it or not, it's actually kind of a little bit weird, but the one thing that caught my attention in the very first time that I saw Charmaine on the stage was that she was able to get her dog poopy bags sponsored. And I'm like, okay, if you can get your dog's poopy bag sponsored, I just want to be like, you caught my attention with that, right? You call them dog poop bag, right?
That's right. I have more poop bags in my house, my car, my office than one would ever need in a lifetime.
but to kind of qualify that a little bit, it's not just her poop bag, dog's poop bag that is sponsored. She had 43 sponsors at the point that she was doing the presentation the first time I talked to her. So she had 43 sponsors, like everything that she had was a sponsor. Her haircut, her makeup, her clothing, her, like her RV, her travel, like everything that she was using for one of her dream projects, it was sponsored through people and through media and everything. So that's actually what caught my attention, and I listened to her, and she really has great knowledge and amazing way of getting connected with the sponsors and get them to fund her dream project, and she can teach you how you can get your dream project sponsored. So Charmaine, I just kind of turn the table toward you, and it's like, you go ahead, and I'm just gonna be here for support and anything that you need.
Wonderful. And interject, share your ideas, because I know the work that you're doing right now, helping entrepreneurs be successful, is so fitting with what we're talking about. So let me just give you a real quick lay of the land and what we're going to cover. You might see my eyes going over to my right every now and then. I've got my list of notes that I don't want to forget to share with you, some juicy tips. We're going to be talking about how to find corporate sponsors to fund your dream project. And feel free to put what your dream project is in the chat box, whether you're working on it right now or it's, you know, it's in your mind and it's percolating and getting built. But I'd love to hear what people's dream projects are, because one of the things I know from these webinars is that we can become champions for one another. So when I know what you're working on, when I know what your passions are, I can be a champion for you on social media and help you get the message out. And the reason I share that right off the bat is that being a champion for other people and other projects and your sponsors, your dream sponsors, is really super important. So Brett says, Independent Music Festival, awesome. And I look forward to keep reading those as you put them in, folks. So what we're going to be talking about is how to get corporate sponsors on board to support your mission and your dream project. A couple of things that I want to add about myself. You heard that I had 43 sponsors at the time that we met. So from poop bags to RVs and everything in between. And it's been a really exciting learning opportunity. And I say learning opportunity because let me tell you, there is a lot to learn about sponsorship. I think what holds us back a lot is we don't know what we don't know. Therefore, we don't know how to get started. So today I'll share with you how I got started and how I started to figure this out. One of the things that came up in the survey that you did, and thank you, by the way, to all of you for completing the survey. We had overwhelming response from people. And the 3 top items that came up from folks was, what information do sponsors want to know? That was number one. 92% of you wanted to know that. So we'll cover that today. You wanted to know, who do you actually talk to about sponsorship? 89% of you wanted to know about that. We'll talk about that. And then the mistakes. 82% of you said, what mistakes do I want to make sure I avoid? And if it's okay with all of you, I'm going to share a couple of epic failures. I think you might have heard one of these at the presentation where I broke a lot of rules in the beginning, and I wasn't savvy enough to be okay with breaking rules. So I'll share a couple of mistakes. Now, like many of you, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've had my business 19 years. I'm an author. I have 5 books published and 6 others I'm featured in. And I'm a speaker, so I get to travel around the world. And my primary audience is corporate. I speak on human relations, conflict, and resilience in the workplace. Because of my books and the products we've created around them, I also do a lot of work with entrepreneurs. And that really is a passion for me, helping people be able to build their businesses and do that through sponsorship. I actually grew up in an entrepreneurial family in Burlington, Ontario. Somebody mentioned they're from Burlington. I grew up in a flower shop, and my mom and dad owned a flower shop, and that's where I really started to learn about business. So I guess you could say it was in my blood. And sponsorship is something that we all need to know about. Whether you learn it from me or someone else, I just want you to learn about this, because it's not just about having poop bags and clothing and RV and hotel rooms and events paid for by sponsors. It's about how much faster we can get our message to the world. So for those of you that are authors and speakers, we want to get our message out to the world, and sponsors can help us reach people around the globe in a way that we just can't do on our own. Now, in terms of, let's dive in here. I let you know the 3 areas that you wanted to cover. Before we cover those, I'm going to sort of lay the groundwork on what sponsorship actually means so that we're all talking the same language. You're probably going to hear me use the word sponsorship and partners interchangeably throughout our time together, because I have a lot of sponsors actually that prefer to be called partners. So I just want to make sure that that makes sense. And in terms of sponsorship, let me read a fantastic definition of sponsorship. This is a great book, by the way. Recommend you all get it. Reality Check by Brent Barootes, B-A-R-O-O-T-E-S. This is a gentleman I deeply respect out of Calgary with the Partnership Group, and he makes sponsorship so easy to understand in his book. Now, Brent says sponsorship is an in-kind or cash fee that's paid to a property. So here's the thing, we're referred to as the property. I know it's not a very attractive title, but it differentiates the sponsor between the person who is applying for sponsorship, and that's the property. So you can hear that Brent talks about two things. He talks about in-kind, and then he talks about cash. And in our sponsorship world, we've had both. We've had companies that cut us a check to support our dream project. And we've had partners like Poop Bags, the original Poop Bags, Fraser Way RV, who's right here in BC, who sponsored the RV for us. We've had media sponsor. And here's how it got started. All of you know who Oprah is. And I was watching Oprah one day, and at the end of her show, I'm watching the credits scroll through. And it says, Oprah's clothing is provided by so-and-so, and Oprah's hair was sponsored by so-and-so, her car, everything was sponsored. You know, and I thought, boy, if Oprah can do it, maybe Charmaine Hammond can't. that was a lofty
I like
vision.
your can-do attitude.
So I just thought, I have no idea how she did this, but I thought I need to start finding out. So I researched everything I could about sponsorship. I started to pay attention, and this is a great tip for all of you. I started to pay attention to the events that were going on in my community. The walks, the music festivals, like Brett had said, the different jog-a-thons, the different fundraisers, and I paid attention to the events in my community, and then I watched to see what sponsors were attaching their name to. And I started to look at their websites, and I started to follow that particular event through social media. And I learned so much about sponsorship just by watching how people do sponsorship. So the terms are, sponsor is that company, whether it's a small company or a large company, like a national brand like Staples or Starbucks. It can be the local grocery store, the mom and pop shop down the street from you. And they're supporting your dream project through in-kind, so donating products or services, or providing financial support. Now, what's important to know, that here's a few takeaways that I really need people to listen carefully to. Sponsorship is different from philanthropy. Many of you have done philanthropy where we support a charity that we love and we cut them a check and we don't really expect anything in return. If we get a thank you card, that's awesome, but we don't expect our logo on their website, or we don't expect them to introduce us at an event. That's philanthropy. So philanthropy, it's kind of like a donor supportive role. And then there's sponsorship, which is all about a marketing relationship. So as all of you know, you've been in marketing relationships with people that help you with your marketing, perhaps. We expect a return on investment, ROI. So when sponsors are supporting your dream projects, they're expecting something back. Whereas in philanthropy, not really the case. Now, in terms of, there was a question that came into me by email that we'll actually just address here because it fits perfect. The question was, is sponsorship the same as angel investors? And I thought that was a great question. So thank you to the individual who asked that. It's not actually, it's quite different, because with investing relationships, an angel investor often has no expectation of marketing support or publicity, or that you're going to promote them at your music festival or at your book launch. They're investing in your project, but they're also expecting to get their investment plus some back. So angel investing and sponsorship is quite different. With sponsorship, the one thing I've learned early on is that relationship is key. It's absolutely key. So all of you who are already in the game of building powerful professional relationships, what is so important is to know that everything that you do or say representing your brand, so what you say on social media, how you show up at an event, that starts to create your brand, and sponsors watch very closely. So I'll give you an example. I was calling a major bank in Canada who were on my dream sponsor list. They were also my bank for the last 21 years. So I was joking with the sponsorship manager later that, boy, oh boy, if I could just get all my service charges back in terms of what I paid them over the year, if they could cut me a check for that, I'd be really happy. Now, I could say that because we had spent a lot of time on the phone and we were in a relationship that was jovial. Had I have said that right off the bat, there would have been a lot of reasons for that sponsor to get off the phone with me. So we have to take that relationship slowly and delicately, but we have to be ourselves. You have to show up authentically. And sponsors will check you out before you even have a phone call. And I know this for a fact because that particular bank, I noticed there were comments the day before the call. There were comments on my social media feed or likes that had come from them. There was a share that they had done on my Twitter. But most importantly, they checked me out on LinkedIn because, of course, LinkedIn shows you who checks you out. And immediately after that phone call, I went and checked out my LinkedIn to ensure that what I was putting out there on LinkedIn was what I wanted sponsors to see. So make sure that how you show up really represents you and your brand and your passion well. Sponsorship takes time. It does take time. And the easiest way to start with sponsorship, folks, is to first of all look at in-kind sponsorship. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Be clear on your project. This is another tip that I want you to hold in your mind as we're going through our time together. Be clear on your project. If you're struggling to say what your project is about, sponsors will struggle to understand what it's about, which means they simply won't see where they fit in. And I'll give you an example. The most recent sponsorship event that we did was called A Million Acts of Kindness. This was a big, big speaking and book tour that we planned. It was 6 weeks, 10,000 miles or 14,000 kilometers across North America. So we made about 100 stops, and we had some significant partners. One of our partners that came on was TELUS, and I had been trying to get a telecom company to come on as a sponsor for long before this particular tour. And it's tough to find the right person, then to get past the gatekeeper, and then to actually build the relationship, which can take 6 months to 2 years. And it was because of our incredible sponsor, Fraser Way RV. They reached out to their telecom company, TELUS, and talked about the tour. And in a matter of minutes, Fraser Way RV was able to leverage their positive relationship with TELUS to bring them onto our tour as a partner. That's why I say relationships are key. Now, their belief in what we were doing and their investment in our sponsorship saved me probably 2 additional years of navigating through the sponsorship process to get a telecom sponsor. So make sure that there's one mistake that people make, and it's not leaving sponsors enough time. We see it all the time with in the nonprofit world with fundraisers and galas. When they start looking for sponsorship is often when it becomes really clear that the seats aren't selling. And we see this a lot with conferences. There's this panic that goes on when registrations are not coming on, and that's when people start going crazy trying to find sponsors. But the challenge is the bigger the sponsor, so the bigger the brand. So let's take a mom and pop grocery store versus Staples Canada or Starbucks. To get into Starbucks as a sponsor is a really long time in relationship building. To get into support from the mom and pop store down the street is probably much more doable in a short period of time. So leave them enough time. So that as we launch into the questions now and some real takeaways for you, we want to make sure that we are showing up as our brand. We want to make sure that we understand sponsorship, that it's a marketing relationship. Sponsors are expecting something.
Okay, can anybody see me on the call? Okay, perfect. So Charmaine just texted me that she had a power connection, and okay, I didn't know that everybody can see me still. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so Charmaine just texted me that she had a power connection, a power problem, and she's gonna re-log in again. She's actually trying to re-log in right now, so she will be with us in a few seconds. Now, I really appreciate the fact that. Is like anyhow, I appreciate you guys staying on the call here until Charmaine comes back, and I just want to go back to the questions, and actually I was reading some of the comments on the projects that you guys want to fund. So until Charmaine comes back, I'm going to talk a little bit about those projects and just kind of get more information until Charmaine comes back here on the call. Apparently what happened to Charmaine was that her computer turned off. So it takes her a few seconds to turn on her computer again, and after turning it on, she has to log into the system. So it's probably going to be like a couple of minutes until she will be back. And yeah, I actually didn't know that you guys can see me still. So I'm glad that we can continue the webinar until Charmaine comes back. And I know actually quite a few, like few of you who are on the I know that some of you who are on the call have great experience with the sponsorship. So actually, it would be great if you let us know on the right side of the screen, the ones that if you guys have any sponsorship experience before or not. I know, for example, that Roger, who is on the call, he has had some experience with getting some investment and opportunities. So go ahead to the right side of the screen and let me know that if you guys have had any experience with sponsorship before, or if you have ever approached any sponsor and haven't got any result that you wanted. Okay, so what's the if you have ever approached any sponsor and there was a big problem with the sponsor, or there was something that stopped you from getting into relationship with sponsors, that would be great. So when Charmaine comes back, I can actually get her to answer some of those questions and help you with overcoming those objections. Okay, that's perfect. So I'm gonna actually, there's just so many comments here, trying to keep up with the comments as well as you write those new information. Okay, Joyce says yes, I can. Okay, great. So do I need to be wearing a business suit, Jay? We're allowed to have fun while learning. What's the story, Jay? Okay, perfect. No, come on, it's not a game, and we need to do business like during business time. Awesome, perfect. I lost the previous chat feed, which had a lot of projects listed. Is there a way to get those your email? No. 5 years doing communications. So Serena says 5 years doing communications and creating a sponsor packages. Okay, that's great, Serena. So that's awesome. Stephanie says never. Tracy says none. Patrick says defining the value to the sponsor was the biggest challenge. Roy said I have not been successful in finding a sponsor for Vancouver Business Network. Okay, perfect. Charmaine, we have you back, right? We can't hear you though. We can't hear you. Okay, Patrick says no. Yes. Perfect.
Yay! Sorry about that, guys. I just disappeared. I'm back, and it sounds like you're having great conversation without me. That's awesome.
You know what? Actually, I didn't realize that when you got disconnected, people can still see me. So I was sitting here for myself. I was like, la, 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 waiting for you to come back. And suddenly I felt like people can still see me. I don't think. And I was like, yeah, everybody can see me. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to pick this up until you come back. So I'm glad that you are back. And thanks, everybody, for staying on the call and just get this going.
Yeah.
Super great. So, yeah, okay. Actually, in the meantime, when you were not around, I don't know if you can see the chat box on the right side. If you
can, yeah.
The previous chats, or you just see it from the time.
It's just showing current, yeah.
Okay. So it's showing current. So what I did, I asked people if they had any experience with getting sponsors before, and what was the biggest challenges that they had. And so the challenges was defining how they show the value to the sponsor, finding the right sponsors for weekly events that they are doing, getting people on, communicating with the sponsors and not getting rejected. So and as you continue, I read more of the comments. Okay.
Beautiful. Those are great questions, and I love that. I love that you're raising these, because these are things that we bump up against all the time with sponsorship. So one of the things, let's return to what do sponsors want to know. That was one of the hot items that all of you had. So we understand what a sponsor is. We know it takes time. We know it's that marketing relationship. What do they want to know about us? First, they actually want to know about your reach and your influence. So when I was sharing with you about the major bank that I was talking with you about before I got booted off there, what was really important is that they were checking me out on all my platforms. So you really want to spend some time going back through all your social media platforms to make sure it's presenting the image that you want, and that your message about your project is clear. So if it's a weekly event that you're looking for sponsors for, maybe venue or printing or marketing materials or media support, or to help fill the room, you want to make sure that everything that you're putting out there about that weekly event is crystal clear for a sponsor to understand. Here's what I learned. This was the mistake I was getting into. When we started to identify our Million Acts of Kindness tour, it had many moving parts. It had school presentations, business presentations, networking events. It had media. It had fundraising and philanthropy. It had kindness activities. It had stops in the community. So the list went on. There were about 15 moving parts. Some parts that would be appealing to a certain sponsor, and some that they might not be interested in. And when I was explaining for the very first time our tour, it took me about 9 minutes to get through explaining the whole overview. Now, thankfully, I presented my explanation to a sponsor that I've known for many years, and that probably wouldn't be sponsoring this event because I knew it wasn't a good fit, but I was looking for feedback. And the feedback she gave me was, Charmaine, it was great, your passion, your project is great, but 9 minutes to understand it is way too long. You need to get this down to 3 minutes. You need to boil it into bite-sized pieces. And before you even explain the whole project, you need to better understand what we're interested in. So don't even explain the parts of the project that we wouldn't have a fit for or be interested in. That feedback was so critical. So what I did, and this is a hint for all of you, to take your project, whether it's a music festival, that weekly event, whatever your dream project is, and I want you to write out a script of how you would explain it to someone who doesn't know you or doesn't know your project. And then I actually want you to go in front of a mirror and practice your explanation in front of a mirror and watch how you appear. There's going to be parts first time out that probably feel awkward and clunky, and your nonverbal language is going to show that. Now imagine if that was a sponsor, that's what they're going to see. And then time it. So if it took 6 minutes, you know that you need to get quicker to the point or only share specific pieces. And essentially what you want to do is you want to have about a 3-minute explanation on this whole conversation about what your project's about. You want to track your metrics. Every Friday in our office is called Vital Statistics Friday. I keep track of my social media following, my social media reach, how many people are on our website, all of those analytics that a sponsor is going to want to know. What else do sponsors want to know about us? They want to know who you're connected to. So some of you have been talking about networking events or groups that you belong to. The group right now that's here together, that's a group where you're all connecting and supporting offline through Iman's program. So you want to connect with people that are in your circle and be clear with your sponsors or potential sponsors, the groups that you belong to. One of the organizations I'm a member of is the Evolutionary Business Council. And collectively, and this is from about just half of their members, they've been tracking collectively how big the reach is. And on the website yesterday, I was on the website, their collective reach is more than 40 million. That's an important connection for me to let sponsors know when I'm in conversation with them. The other piece that sponsors want to know is, what are the goals of your project? How many people will it reach? How will it impact people, or what difference will it make? And then they want to know all the details of how things are going to fall into place. What we need to do before we get into negotiations or real in-depth conversations with a sponsor is we have to identify who are the sponsors that we would love to have involved in our dream project. The easiest way I can suggest for all of you to do this is over the weekend, perhaps, because I'd love for you to step into action right away. Over the weekend, if you could each just take a piece of paper and just spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and write down all the sponsors that would be on your dream list. And I would say limit it to 10 because there's a next piece of homework. But if you take 10 dream sponsors, write them down. The next step to your homework is then to go onto their web pages. This is going to lead us into one of the other questions that you were asking about on the survey. You're going to go on to their web page. So let's just get a few of you. Can some of you put in the chat box who might be on your dream sponsor list? And then I'll just use one of those as an example. So who's on your dream sponsor list? And I'll tell you a couple of mine. One of my dream sponsors is actually Tim Hortons, because I love the work that they're doing with kids, and some of the philanthropy that I do is with children. So Adidas, we've got a major bank. Yeah, having a major bank is really important. And actually, there are ways to get to major banks. And we've got, what else do we have? Adidas, we've got telecommunications companies. We've got Pepsi, Scotiabank. So I'd like you all to do what you've just done here. Write your list of 10 dream sponsors. Now, be aware that to get into something like Coke or Adidas, the number of sponsors that request that they get a month is outrageous. So for us, if we're just starting in the game, I know for me, I've been working with major brands in the pet industry for 3-4 years now in conversation. That's how long it's taken. We're not in a negotiated relationship yet. So the bigger the brand, the tougher usually it is to get in, because they tend to fund really, or sponsor really big events that have big impact for them. So writing your list down, wonderful, great list, guys. And then what you're going to do is go on to their website. So somebody picked Telsa Motors. You're going to go on to Telsa Motors website, Stacy. And then what you're going to do is look at several pages. Everybody can do this for any of the sponsors, small or large brands. On their website, I want you to actually punch in into their search. If it doesn't have a sponsorship page, punch in sponsorship. You might find that they don't have a sponsorship page. Doesn't mean they don't have a sponsorship program, but a lot of times companies make it very difficult for us to find the sponsorship page. So here's a couple of things that will help you. If you can't see sponsorship on their website, then what you want to do is look up these terms: community investment. A lot of big companies call their sponsorship program community investment, how they invest in the community. Some of them, their sponsorship program is under the public relations department. If you can't find it, the best place to go is the marketing department, the head of marketing, the marketing director, because sponsorship is a marketing relationship. Some of the other terms that I've seen used is community relations, community service, how we invest in our community. So those are the different ways that you are going to research the sponsor, and you're going to look up what they currently do for sponsorship. So let me give you an example. Canadian Tire, which is a huge outlet in Canada, they sell car parts, they sell sporting goods, and even housewares and pet items, pet supplies now too. And I was really interested in them because I love the difference that they make in the community. When I went onto their website and found information about sponsorship, it was really clear to me that what they were interested in sponsoring was athletic type activities for children. They wanted to make a difference in the community by promoting fitness and well-being. So I actually didn't pursue working towards building a relationship with them because I knew that I probably wasn't able to offer them what they need. Now, the other thing that you want to find out in sponsorship is getting past the gatekeeper. And I'll tell you, folks, this is probably the toughest thing in sponsorship, is getting to the right person. So once you've got on their website, and you're looking at their sponsorship page, you can also go on and read their last press releases and watch videos that they have about previous events they've sponsored. This will really help you understand who they sponsor and what they have a passion in supporting. And then what we want to do is get in contact with the person. This is the tough part, because many of their websites don't say email Mary at the sponsorship department, or they don't provide you a link or a phone number. And I want you to I'm going to give you 2 scenarios and tell me which one resonates. One option is you could phone the head number of that company. And I'll tell you, even getting the head phone numbers for some of these businesses is really hard as well. You have to go through an automated online system or a phone system. So let's say it was Rona. We've got Rona a few times here at the top of the screen. So if you were to phone Rona's corporate office, you could say, hi, it's Charmaine Hammond, and I'm looking to speak to the person that deals with sponsorship with Rona. May you patch me through? Now that's one way, and probably you're going to be patched through to a voicemail. Or they'll say, please go check out our website, and it's the link you already checked out. Or you can do what I do. This is the $1 million tip here, is you can use LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you can go into a search option in LinkedIn and you could punch in Rona. This is what you would put in the LinkedIn search bar. Rona sponsorship, Rona community investment, Rona public relations, whatever terms, and it's going to tell you the person's name who has that job title at Rona. So now I can phone back up, and it probably has their contact information. It may not be their direct line, but at least you know you're calling the right head office for Rona. So I'd pick up the phone. Hi, it's Charmaine Hammond. May I please speak to Sue Smith? I just made that name up. I don't know if she works for Rona. May I speak to Sue Smith? And what do? They put me right through to Sue Smith, or Sue's voicemail. We bypass the gatekeeper. And this is critical in sponsorship, because getting to the right person puts you in a better position to get a yes. Really, really important. So having that name. The other way that you can find the name is Google, if it's Rona or Pepsi, Bass Pro Shops, whoever it is that your dream sponsor is, Google them to see what kind of events that they've done and their press releases. And somebody else just mentioned that as well. Press releases actually usually give the PR person. So you can call up with a name and then get put through to the right person. So these are keys for getting started. Now, what we do with sponsorship, here's the next piece of homework. You've got your dream list. Now what you need to do is spend some time thinking about what your project is and every single need that you have. So let's go back to a networking event that you might be holding, or a conference, or your music festival. What is every single service or product or form of support that you, besides money, that you would need for your event, for your dream project? Then what you're going to do is you're going to create a second list. So you've got your list of needs. Then you're going to do a brain dump and list all the people that you know, because this is the easiest way to start sponsorship, with people that you know. That's how we started. 43 sponsors that you heard in the introduction. The majority of those were people that I already knew and already had a business relationship with. My first 10 sponsors, here's who my first 10 sponsors were. The printing shop that I've been doing printing with for years. I simply had a conversation with them about my first event that I was doing. It was actually a book launch at that time. And would they be willing to collaborate in some way? And I didn't even have to ask her. Alex from Modern Press just said, you know, why don't we sponsor your printing, Charmaine? We'd love to get behind what you're doing. My hairstylist actually did all my hair and makeup and nails and monthly massage at their spa. Had all my health products covered. I had my marketing materials, like the banners, those 6-foot banners, and my bookmarks and my postcards, all from people I know. So that's why that brain dump list of everyone you know is critical. Here's why having in-kind sponsors is valuable. Imagine this scenario. Let's just say that who was wanting to, okay, Jean, you were saying Bass Pro Shops. Let's just say Jean really wants to get in a relationship with Bass Pro Shops. What Jean can do is, first of all, start following Bass Pro Shops on social media, building a relationship, being a champion for them, not asking for anything in return, just being a champion. noticing when they sponsored something in the event and going onto Facebook saying, woohoo, you know, love what Bass Pro Shops is doing to support the community. That's step one. And then what we want to start doing is building influence with them, reading their press releases, getting really familiar with what it is that they're doing. And then we want to get ready to do what's called a discovery call. And a discovery call, this is the key, because a lot of times when we start to build relationships with bigger sponsors, and I'm going to come back to the in-kind in a moment, when we're starting to try and build those relationships that take time with bigger sponsors, like I would say that Bass Pro Shops is a bigger sponsor. It's a process, and it starts with a discovery call, and it's all about them. On a discovery call, you literally get about 15 minutes on a call with them. So imagine if we start talking all about us and our project and what we're doing and the difference we want to make in the world. At the end of the call, we haven't learned anything about that brand, that sponsor, anything about what their goals are. And so if we make it about them, first of all, and learn from Bass Pro Shops, what are your marketing goals? What kind of events do you typically sponsor? What projects in the community do you support through sponsorship? What are some of the sponsorships that have gone really well for you in the past, and why? What are some of the challenges that you want to hope you avoid? What are your ultimate goals around connecting with audiences? Who are the audiences that you want to connect with? What works with connecting with those audiences? Because here's what happens is sponsors often come on board because they want connection to the audience that you have. So let me give you an example. Getting into schools is very difficult for sponsors, very difficult, but big sponsors want to be involved in schools because they have access to thousands of parents and families. But for them to get into schools and get a lot of recognition, it's really tough for them. That's why we've been really successful having sponsors fund our kindness project, my dream project, the kindness, Million Acts of Kindness tours, because they can get into the school through me. I become the vehicle or the messenger for them. So really, really important to understand that. Now, in-kind sponsors will help you getting larger sponsors down the road. So when I had those 10 different sponsors right out the gate for my book launch, and I put all of their logos with their permission, and with the logo they sent us, never use someone's logo unless you know it's the logo that they've sent you, because that has been a mistake that people make. They just go grab a logo off Google Images, and it's not the right sponsor logo that sponsor wants to use. So once we created this little graphic of 10 sponsors, and we started to have conversations with bigger sponsors, that's one of the things they wanted to know. Who else are you in a sponsorship relationship with? It was so much easier for them to say yes when we had 10 or 15 or 20 other sponsors that were supporting us. So going to the people that you know and finding a way to collaborate to create this mutually agreeable solution and collaboration is so powerful. It doesn't need to be an exchange of money. It can be them providing something that you need, where you can promote them as a sponsor. And then that gives you credibility in the sponsorship world to be able to go to talk to some of the bigger sponsors about being involved in your dream project. One of the mistakes that people make, let's talk about the mistakes here, because if I can help you not make these mistakes right out the gate, I will feel really good. Mistake number one. This is the big one, and I've heard it from nearly every sponsor I've ever interviewed, because I interview sponsors. I interview them for my blogs and my previous radio show. And the number one mistake that they say we make is that we don't customize our conversations and our sponsorship programs. What people typically do, and you've all seen it, and we've all volunteered at organizations who do this, they have a gold, silver, bronze. How many of you have seen the gold, silver, bronze model? Or maybe you've sat on a committee for a community project and you submit a proposal that says gold, silver, bronze, or, you know, the premier sponsor, friends of sponsor. But basically what I'm getting at is when you have a sponsor label and it says, for this form of sponsorship, you will receive this, this, and this. And Tracy says all the time, Thanks, Tracy. So what happens is, this is what I was at a conference and IBM was sharing. This was the head of sponsorship for Canada, IBM, and he said the number one mistake people make is they use gold, silver, bronze, or any other variation of that. And he said, we don't review them, because we know if you submit something with gold, silver, bronze, or whatever words you're using, it's a generic proposal that isn't customized to our needs. And I thought, wow, that in itself was such valuable learning for me. That's why these research activities I'm giving you to learn about the sponsor, and then getting ready for discovery calls. And actually on July 11th, I'm going to do a deep dive follow-up webinar. There's no cost for that, but what I'm actually going to do is take people on a step-by-step where you'll actually be able to create your sponsorship program by September with the steps that I give you. Because usually what I find is when we do an introductory webinar like this, your brain is so full of stuff, and then the question is, okay, what action step do I take? So I've given you 3 pieces of homework already, but I'll get a link out to all of you for the July 11th webinar where we can just focus on these top 3 points that you've talked about. Now, the key here with sponsorship and discovery calls is that now you've learned how to get past the gatekeeper. Now you've got that discovery call set up. And does anyone remember how many minutes I said you get on these discovery calls usually? Let's just test the audience. Anybody remember how many minutes? It's not long. It was 15 minutes that you get usually, sometimes 20. So you've got to prepare that story. You've got to understand the brand. You need to, you're right, and people that are putting 3, you're right, in the 3 was relating to, you've got to get your story explainable in 3 minutes. So during that 15-minute phone call with that potential sponsor, that prospect, you can learn more about them and share less about you. The whole goal of the first call, can anyone get this? What's the goal of call number 1? Because you're going to have many. The goal of the first call is to get
the next call.
What's that?
Is to get the next call.
Woohoo! You are the prize winner. Exactly, to get the next call. And the goal of call number 2 is to get the next call. That's how we start building the relationship. So yes, Nikki, suggestions on how to start the conversation. When you understand their brand, when you've researched them, one of the things that's very helpful is you're going to have questions right off the bat to ask them. But you know what I find for people, it's that first 90 seconds. Can you all relate with me on this? You pick up the phone and they actually answer, and you've got to say something. It's that first 90 seconds that is so critical. So I would suggest you practice your first 90 seconds. Usually what I say is something, because I've never met them before, I'll say something like, let's do what I did when I called CIBC Bank. They're the bank that we deal with for many, many years. The one that I was telling you I was able to later joke around with them in our calls. How I started that very first call, and in all honesty, I was expecting a voicemail. So I had spent more time practicing my voicemail message than if they answer message or answer conversation. But basically what I said was something to the effect of, hi, it's Charmaine Hammond with Hammond International. I understand, Rena, that you are the sponsorship manager that I need to be talking with. And I wanted to set up an appointment with you for about 15 minutes to learn more about CIBC's sponsorship program. And she said, oh, you know what? I've got 20 minutes right now. So I said, great. So you always want to be prepared that sometimes if you catch that sponsorship manager or that community investment director on the phone, they might just want to have the phone call with you right then. So before we even got into who I am and what I do, she started to explain the CIBC program. Because I had spent a lot of time researching them, I read all the press releases that they'd done in the last year. I watched some of the videos on their website. I felt I knew a little bit about them. And so she was able to explain the sponsorship program. And here's the questions that I asked right off the bat. I said, I noticed that you've supported things like breast cancer, community resilience building for children. I also learned that you've supported a number of programs that support Canada's history. So there's a lot of areas that you cover. What are the priorities for you going into 2017, 2018? So notice I didn't even focus on this year because they probably already spent their money. And she was able to identify the priorities. And then I was able to think about, these two priorities actually relate to what I'm doing in my dream project. And that's where I started to focus. When we do our follow-up webinar on the 11th, I'm actually going to take you through a discovery call and help you write your discovery call scripts, and you'll get a list of questions, because I actually had a list of questions printed off in PowerPoint so that I could read them as I was going through. You want to practice them all in the mirror, and then please turn your timer on. So what will happen is at about 3 minutes before the 15 minutes, you can just say something like, I'm really conscious of time here, and I just wanted to make sure that we could set a time to get together again by phone. And you actually set up that call right then and there. You can say something like, I've got my calendar right here. Maybe we set up another 50-minute call to continue this conversation. Because what I find is if you have to go back through that email back and forth, it is so difficult to get the second call going, and you want to have it as soon as possible, so in the next couple of weeks. And then what will happen is your conversations are going to take a pretty natural, what would you call it? Your conversations are going to take a pretty natural flow to them, and they're not going to feel as bumpy as it might feel first time around. Now, the other thing that we had talked, that I just want to bring to, as we start to close out here, is another mistake that people make is they ask too early. There's an analogy from many people where they compare sponsorship to dating. So if we were to meet a sponsor somewhere, and then we gave them our little 3-minute or 5-minute version of our project and said, we'd love for you to be involved. Can we talk about that? That's like meeting somebody in a restaurant and saying, I'd love to be, in a long-term relationship with you. In fact, I'd love to marry you. Can we talk about that? It's weird and awkward. So we really got to think about sponsorship relationships take time. And if you ask too early, these are professionals that deal with sponsorship every day. So what happens is if it appears that we don't know the process and the etiquette around sponsorship, is that we become less appealing to them. So the more that you can do, like today's webinar, helping you understand sponsorship and some of the things to think about and get ready, is so valuable, because you will be further ahead than folks that don't know about sponsorship and they're breaking the rules. So no gold, silver, bronze. You're going to customize a proposal. And here's my rule. We don't actually send proposals out until I pretty much know it's going to be a yes. We send a proposal almost as a summary of everything we've talked about over our discovery calls or meetings. And then that's what starts to formulate the final negotiations to what that sponsorship is going to look like. So don't send random proposals. Don't have gold, silver, bronze. Don't ask for things too soon. Make sure that you build that relationship. Learn everything you can about your sponsors. Create your dream list of sponsors. 10, research them like crazy. Spend time doing that. It will serve you well. Create your list of what you need. And then finally, create your list of who you know. And start to go to the people that you know and talk about your project, your dream project. And instead of asking them for sponsorship, because a lot of people hear sponsorship and they hear dollars, and they might not be in a position to give money. Instead of asking for sponsorship, say, I thought because we've known each other for so long and we've been in this business relationship for such a long time, maybe there's a way that we could collaborate. Would you be open to a conversation about that? And just let the conversation start. My experience is that often they start to offer how they could be involved and support you, and they pose ideas and ways to be involved that I never thought possible, that I wouldn't have thought of in a conversation. Those are some of the keys that I wanted to give you today. So I'm just looking here to see if we've got some more questions. And I'm going to actually pull up this. I have a link here for this Thursday, July 11th webinar. It's simply a webinar to go deep into the areas of getting you started. My goal for all of you is, if you're serious about learning about sponsorship, what I would love to see you all do is actually spend time over the summer really getting to understand sponsorship, and also starting to pull your sponsorship pack, not your proposal packages, that's not what I mean, but pulling together your concepts of your project, what your message is, what you have to offer sponsors, your discovery call questions, all of that, so that you can actually, in the fall, in September, when the businesses are back into their sponsorship programming, you can actually get out of the gate much further ahead. You would be surprised the results you will have. So I put that link for Thursday's deep dive webinar. So any other questions that we wanted to answer? I know we're close to our time. Lots to take in.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions on the right side, actually.
Okay.
For example, Camille says, if your sponsors are a smaller business, would you follow the same process?
Yeah, great question. You know what, with smaller businesses, especially if you know them, if it's someone that you know, you can bypass a lot of that formalities, but I would still have kind of a discovery conversation with them. I'd still research them a little bit, but it's probably going to happen way faster and much easier because they're smaller and there's less hurdles that you have to cross.
Okay. And then Jill is saying that I'm starting a chamber of commerce for women. If we don't offer gold, silver, bronze on the website, then what we should offer?
What I would suggest is, see, that's another area that sponsors are telling me. Because what they do is, here's what happens, and I do this because I sponsor a lot of events. I'm also a sponsor. So if I go onto someone's website and they say, okay, if you're the gold sponsor, you get your logo here, we'll print a banner with your logo on, we'll do this, we'll announce you from the stage, whatever the benefits are. For me as a speaker, it doesn't really help me to have my logo on a banner because my logo wouldn't necessarily make sense to anyone. What would help me as a sponsor is to actually have 15 minutes on the stage so I can meet an audience. But if that's not in any of the writing there, I'm just actually going to click off. So what you can do instead, and I love that you've asked this question, you can actually frame it more generically not with gold, silver, bronze, or any levels. You can do something like, we have customized sponsorship packages available. Please call our office. We can offer these kinds of benefits. So rather than categorize them, list off some of but not all of some of the benefits that we have available to sponsors. For example, a selfie booth, or maybe they can be the video sponsor, the coffee sponsor. But rather than putting a dollar figure, because that's the other thing, if sponsors go on a web page and they see 15,000, 10,000, 5,000, they might only have $2,200 left in their sponsorship budget, and they might just bypass you. Whereas if you leave it a little more open and get them to call your office, you're actually going to have a much better chance. And then what you can do is because they're probably going to ask you for something after the first call, they'll say, can you send me something? So what you can do is, what you create is something that speaks to the fact you can customize sponsorship programs. And we want to hear what is most meaningful to you in terms of a benefit. One example is some sponsors, the biggest benefit to them would be to do a lead generation draw where they could collect everybody's emails, or sampling. Our poop bag sponsor, for example, the best way for him to get in front of audiences is for us to give out poop bags for people to try. So that's why I just caution you not to be too specific on your website, because people might bypass if it doesn't land with them. So hope that helps.
Okay. Now, next one is that how do we know we have established enough to seem reputable enough to ask for actual sponsor?
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do we know we're established enough? I've seen cases where really big sponsors get behind someone who's new and starting out, because what that business or entrepreneur is doing matches perfectly to what that sponsor needs. I think what is key is that your brand is clear enough for them to understand, so that your marketing materials, your social media really identifies you as a brand. If you can get a few in-kind sponsors, that will really help. If you can reach out to some of the businesses that you currently do business with, your hair salon, the local place that you buy your gas, the local printer, whoever it is that you're currently in a business relationship with. And this is a great homework activity as well, with that who you know, to write down everyone you do business with, your cell phone provider, your insurance company, where you get your car repaired. They may be people that would come on as an in-kind sponsor, even if they're donating items for your swag bags or discount coupons for your audience. And then what happens is you've built you've built a platform with some sponsors, regardless of how they're supporting you. And that's also going to help with your reputation building with the larger sponsors. And make sure that you're keeping really good stats, vital statistics, I call them, on your social media, because they will want to know about how engaged your audience is. One of my sponsors actually was not concerned about how big our reach was. They were concerned about how active is your following. And that was what was important to them. It wouldn't have mattered if I had 1 million or 500 followers on Facebook. What they were concerned about is how warm is this group to your topic and how engaged are they? And so that was really helpful to learn.
Yeah, they were smart.
Yeah, because they also know you can go and buy followers who, are not their audience. So what they want to do is, this particular sponsor really wanted access to her audience. And I mentioned the pet because 3 of my books are about my dog. So this was a group that really wanted connection to women audiences. And I speak in front of women's conferences all the time. And they wanted connections to pet families, people who have pets in their family. And they didn't care how many people we had. It was how warm is this group.
Okay, perfect. Now, an interesting question that comes up in 2 different shapes is that, one, do you offer any sponsorship package to get sponsors for people? And the following question to that, where can they go to find people who do this professionally to find sponsors, and should they pay for it, or how does that look like?
Yeah, I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. This is my learning, because I actually years ago did buy a package to have someone sell sponsorship for us. And we actually didn't get any ROI. We got a couple of really good leads, but what was happening is initially that particular individual was kind of pitching us to all these different audiences that we might not have been a great fit for. One thing I will mention, and for those of you who are in Canada, you can easily get to there's a conference every October. I'll actually do some follow-up notes and get that out via the Webinar Jam email to you all with follow-up notes. But Brent Barudi's, for those of you that might not have seen this early, he writes a book called Reality Check. This is, I'm on my second version because the first copy is just so underlined and written. Brent Barudi, he's from Calgary. His company is Partnership Group. And if you can attend workshops with Brent, he gets into something fascinating that I'm still learning about. And it's called Valuing Your Assets, where you actually learn to look at everything you have to offer a sponsor. So for example, I'm a professional speaker. That has huge value to many sponsors because they know I can talk about them at live events. I can put their information in my handouts at conferences. So the Partnership Group is in Calgary. They're partnershipgroup.ca. They're a fantastic organization. I've hired them actually to help me learn more about sponsorship. And I sign up for Brent's Tuesday commentary. Every Tuesday, he puts out this fantastic email with sponsorship tips. And Brent plays at the level of sponsorship that's way further ahead than I am. He's been negotiating very, very big deals. But what Brent has also taught me over the years, and I believe this wholeheartedly, most times the best person to sell sponsorship for you is you, because what they're looking for is that connection with you. Nobody can talk about your dream project like you can. You're going to use words that resonate with a sponsor because you've researched them and you've listened to them. And when they hear you talking their language connected to your project, the synergy is huge. So there are places that you can have people go out and pitch you to sponsors. I haven't had success with that. It doesn't mean that you won't. That was years ago. I prefer now to do all my own sponsorship and then go and keep learning like crazy from people like Brent and his team who do this every single day. Now, I think they do contract out services and they're extremely, extremely thorough in the work they do. They have a whole process. Now, the other answer to that question, I do have different programs and workshops. I offer a lot of webinars like this that are free on one on discovery calls where the whole call is just about webinars. I also have a program, a 13 module program that helps people do it, a DIY, do it yourself. And I can talk about that on the 11th on the webinar, but I really recommend you all come in on the deep dive webinar on July 11th, because what I want to do then is we'll actually take some of the questions that came up on today's webinar and dive a lot deeper. I'll also be doing some screenshots. So I'm actually going to take you through about 4 or 5 different sponsor websites so that when I'm saying certain things, you can actually see it right on the screen and experience it. And I've got some graphics that I'll show you as well, some things that we've used. I am going to send you a couple of videos to watch around how we've framed different projects that we have pitched to partners, so that you can see that video actually is a great way to have your project explained in 3 minutes. So I'm going to send you a couple of videos for us that one was 4 minutes, so a little over the 3-minute line, and one was about just under 3 minutes, so that you can use those as examples to figure out what you need to say about your project.
Awesome, perfect. So just to remind everybody that there is a recording, that you're going to get the recording, especially we had a couple of glitches today. So yes, you're going to receive a recording for sure, and make sure that look in your mailbox for Charmaine's emails, and don't ignore them. Don't think that it's just kind of regular emails that you've been added to a mailing list. Well, you have been added to a mailing list, but the point is to get lots of information about sponsorship. And Charmaine is going to have a webinar on July 11th, and go dig deeper into that. So make sure that you're going to attend the July 11th webinar as well with Charmaine, and get more information, ask more detailed questions from Charmaine at that event. And also she's going to send you a lot of other information, like short videos and samples and examples on how to get sponsorship. I know that sponsorship can kind of transform your business massively. We just did an event a few weeks ago, and we had actually, we kind of like in the room of, I think close to 1,800 seats were assigned in that room. And from the 1,800, 800 of it was given to sponsors. So,
wow.
So it's just kind of like, it can, you can just imagine an event that could be 1,000 people event turned into an 1,800 people event because there were sponsors, and that's a massive difference that it just makes. It just doubled your business. So yeah, so that's definitely go like learn sponsorship, learn how you can get sponsorship, and no matter how good you know sponsorship, you can always learn it better. Like Charmaine is going to other classes to learn more. Like I really still go to classes. Roger, who is on the call, actually was the producer of that event. That he got like 1,800 people in the event. Still, like he's here on this call learning more about sponsorship. Sponsorship is a big deal. You learn that. You're gonna get amazing results, and better and better and better, and until you get to the point that you get your poop dogs sponsored by some company that wants their poop dogs to be seen. Yeah. So thank you very much again, Charmaine, for being on this webinar, and thanks all of you for being part of the webinar today, and thanks for sticking to the end of the webinar, although we had some couple of technical glitches. I always say technology never disappoints. It always fails. And that's anyhow, it was a proof of that today. But I'm super excited. By the way, for like all of you are from Entrepreneurs International Network today on this call, and we are gonna have another session next week. Well, every Thursday I'm doing a session with a speaker who is doing an amazing job in her business or his business, and they're getting amazing results from what they do. And next week, actually, I'm bringing Grant Baldwin on the webinar, which actually he's gonna talk about how to get booked for getting paid speeches, paid talks. And he has done over 400 paid talks. He has a program on how to get booked for paid talks, not doing just free talks, but it's just like literally get like $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for delivering an hour or 2 hour or 3 hour speech. So make sure that you're gonna be here. You're gonna receive emails from our assistant organizers in your group that you are part of in your city. So make sure to check into that as well. And we'll see you next Thursday. And Charmaine is going to see you on July 11th for her webinar. Charmaine, is there any final thing that you want to add?
I just want to say I really appreciate you all being here. Great questions. Wow, I can't wait to download this so I can send some answers in the follow-up notes for those of you that had questions. And please make sure you do some of the homework. I can promise you, if you get started this weekend, you are already 3 days closer to getting sponsorship than yesterday. It takes time, so just devote some time, enjoy the learning, and you know, sponsors are going to help you with your dream project. I know that for sure.
Awesome. Follow-up. Fantastic. Thank you very much again, Charmaine. And thanks for those of you who are on the call. And looking forward to seeing you next week and on July 11th for Charmaine's event. Thanks and have a fantastic rest of the day. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.